Hi, Tom.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Worldwide President of the World Jurist Association and the World Law Foundation, the Honorable Justice Ginsburg, Associate Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, Judy Perez-Martinez, the President of the American Bar Association, honored guests, and distinguished and honorable diplomatic authorities, and our other welcome guests. As Executive Vice President of the World Jurist Association, it is indeed my privilege to welcome you to the American Bar Association as we present the World Peace and Liberty Award to the Honorable Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It is now my pleasure to introduce Judy Perez-Martinez, who is the President of the American Bar Association, who will give us some welcome comments.
Thank you, Kim. It's my honor to welcome President Kamadas, the distinguished leaders and guests of the World Law Foundation and the World Jurist Association, honored guests and members of the American Bar Association, and of course, Justice Ginsburg. Today marks a homecoming of sorts for the World Law Foundation and World Jurist Association, now independent organizations that came forth from the World Peace Through Law initiative of ABA President Charles Ryan in 1958. President Ryan is also famous for one other signature initiative, Law Day. Law Day has thrived ever since, and we are thrilled to see on display here today the continuing fruits of the World Peace Through Law initiative of President Ryan. Today we honor not only one of history's most gifted and brilliant lawyers, but also an exceptionally elegant and giving person, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We will forever be grateful for Justice Ginsburg's outstanding public service and her continuing contributions on behalf of equal justice for all under the law. Let me underscore that Justice Ginsburg has been especially generous with her leadership at the ABA and other bar organizations. Justice Ginsburg has served on numerous ABA committees, including our ABA Rule of Law Initiative, the ABA Center for Human Rights, and has also served with distinction on the board of the American Bar Foundation. Justice Ginsburg has received prestigious honors from many organizations, including the Association of the American Bar's highest honor, the ABA Medal. This year, Justice Ginsburg is being especially gracious with her time and leadership to support the bar's commemoration of the centennial of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which guaranteed women the right to vote and thereby launched the largest expansion of democracy in our country's history. Justice Ginsburg, we are grateful for your longtime engagement with the American Bar Association. Thank you. And we wish everyone who's gathered here today a warm welcome and thank the World Law Foundation and the World Jurist Association for this magnificent celebration. Thank you all.
For those few people in the room who are not familiar with the World Jurist Association, it is an organization that is comprised of not only lawyers, but law professors, politicians, legal professionals, politicians, and law students. It is not only the oldest law professional group in the world, it is also one that no one has this diversity and breadth in membership. Because of the diversification of its professionals, and also because of the substantive impact that our legal opinions have had as a result of the biennial conferences, we have an impact that is felt far beyond the biennial congresses. When we do a biennial congress, those papers, those white papers, are then summarized and become part of the record at the United Nations, which is a huge positive, because those opinions then become part of the United Nations protocols. This award that we are awarding Justice Ginsburg is our highest award, similar to the Bar Association Award. And it's, since 1963, we have recognized some truly global great leaders, including Sir Winston Churchill, Rene Cassin, who was one of the co-writers of the Human Rights the Global Rights Human Rights Declaration, and Nelson Mandela. The most recent recipient was King Juan Carlos of Spain, and that was at the Biennial Congress last year. Today, we welcome Ruth Bader Ginsburg into this illustrious group of honored global leaders. Presenting the Peace and Liberty Award to global leaders and renowned jurists was an idea that was founded by Charlie Rhine. As Judy mentioned a little bit earlier, Charlie Rhine was not only the founder of the World Jurist Association, but he was also a former president of the American Bar Association. He and Chief Justice, at that time, Chief Justice Earl Warren, were the people who developed this award. And it is the first award that, our highest award that we can bestow, because it is not only awarded to civil jurists, but also to global jurists, and recognizes global dedication over a lifetime of experience. We now have a crucial moment in the ceremony, the reading of the board authorization to Justice Ginsburg, and I invite J. William Eiselman, General Counsel of the World Jurist Association, to read the act authorizing the WJA to present this award to Justice Ginsburg.
Thank you, Kim. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As General Counsel of the World Jurist Association, and in use of the facilities established by both the World Jurist Association and the World Law Foundation Charter and bylaws, and by those traditionally granted to their president to recognize special and extraordinary merits of statesmen, jurists, and relevant personalities of the international legal world who act in pursuit of justice, rights, peace, and freedom, duly authorized by the Board of Directors of the World Jurist Association and the Board of Trustees of the World Law Foundation in their sessions of Washington, D.C. and Madrid, respectively, all faculties understood as sufficient to perform related complementary acts. Among them, to grant the Honorable Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, with their highest recognition, such as the World Peace and Liberty Award. The above-mentioned boards determined that Justice Ginsburg is a woman who has distinguished herself as a jurist capable of raising her voice in defense of equal rights for women and men, human rights, and the role of law above all. She has created a legacy that has changed the world, the lives of this generation and generations to come. Her outstanding career shares the same worldwide principles that guide our organizations, one of the highest aspirations of every human being, to live in peace by the rule of law under a respected legal system complied with by the people. Signed, Javier Cremades Garcia, Worldwide President of the World Jurist Association, President of the World Law Foundation, J. William Eiselman, General Counsel of the World Jurist Association.
Thank you, Bill. As a way of explaining the award, we do have a very short video that we would like to play at this time.
Peace through law. During the Cold War years, faced with the threat of a nuclear holocaust, a few good men set in motion a singular initiative in favor of peace. It was July 1957 when, on the occasion of a gala hosted in London in honor of the American Bar Association, its president, Charles Rhine, the Chief Justice of the United States, Earl Warren, and Sir Winston Churchill agreed to create a program to promote world peace through law, the rule of law against the use of force. It's at that moment they decided to launch what would later be called the World Jurist Association. Years later, in 1963, Charles Rhine and Earl Warren, in their tireless struggle for human rights, inaugurated in Greece the first World Congress of Law. Numerous presidents of Supreme and Constitutional Courts from different countries throughout the world, general attorneys, egregious lawyers, and eminent professors, a group of more than 3,000 jurists centered around a single purpose, defined by President Kennedy in his message to the Assembly. It gives me great pleasure to send greetings to the First World Conference on World Peace through the Rule of Law. This conference represents 5 years of effort and brings together lawyers and judges from overseas from 100 countries in the attempt to develop and strengthen the legal machinery that must form the basis for peaceful relations among all nations. 2 years later, Lyndon B. Johnson inaugurated the Second World Congress in Washington, whose organizing committee was chaired by Presidents Truman and Eisenhower. 25 more assemblies of this kind, organized by the World Jurist Association, have taken place since then in various countries worldwide. Thousands of men and women united in this formidable association to promote peace through law throughout the world. Three world statesmen were also honored years ago with the World Peace and Liberty Award: Sir Winston Churchill, René Cassin, father of the UN Declaration of Human Rights, and Nelson Mandela. In Madrid, within the framework of the 26th World Law Congress, the largest association of jurists in the world, King Felipe VI of Spain is awarded the World Peace and Liberty Award for his defense of democratic and constitutional values that has presided over the 40 years of greater freedom and prosperity throughout the history of his country. The gesture represents an explicit recognition of the democratic institutions of his country for their commitment to the rule of law and the separation of powers. In short, with freedom and justice.
In February 2020, the World Jurist Association and the World Law Foundation, chaired by Javier Cremades, present the World Peace and Liberty Award to U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, recognizing her laudable advocacy of gender equality and civil rights throughout her professional life, as well as having founded the Women's Rights section within the American Civil Liberties Union. Justice Ginsburg has been a visionary and strategic leader in ensuring that equality, equity, and the rule of law do not remain in a theoretical realm, but that they positively impact social institutions and people's lives.
In support of and recognition of Justice Ginsburg's legacy to the world, the Vice President and Magistrate of the Constitutional Court of Spain, Ms. Encarnacion Roca, a friend and colleague of Justice Ginsburg, has also prepared a short video honoring Justice Ginsburg.
It's an honor to address Honorary Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the occasion of the presentation of the World Peace and Liberty Award. This recognition has previously been awarded to Sir Winston Churchill, Nelson Mandela, René Cassin, and His Majesty the King of Spain, Philip VI. All of them have become symbols of the rule of law and have defended it as a fundamental instrument for guaranteeing democracy, freedom, and equality, as opposed to tyranny, discrimination, and abuse of power. Today, the World Jurist Association and the World Law Foundation are honoring Justice Ginsburg for her commitment and contribution to the advance of equality between men and women before the law. She has engaged in this endeavor since the beginning of her legal career at Cornell, Harvard, Columbia, as well as other prestigious universities. In forensic advocacy, as a lawyer for those who were discriminated against because of their status of women, in the Court of Appeals, and more recently as a justice of the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Gender equality is a universal legal principle recognized in various international human rights texts, such as the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in December 1979. Guaranteeing gender equality requires legal action to eliminate all discrimination, direct and indirect, under and before the law. Ruth Bader Ginsburg's groundbreaking work and her dedication to this cause resulted in her becoming the second woman nominated to the Supreme Court of the United States. In my last meeting with Justice Ginsburg, just a few months ago, I again saw her unwavering dedication to the cause of the rule of law. I actively participated in the World Law Congress in Madrid in 2019, where the last World Peace and Liberty Award was presented. It is therefore a double personal satisfaction for me to address to this noble audience gathered in Washington, D.C. by the World Law Foundation and the World Jurist Association. The foundation, born as a result of the 2009 Madrid Congress to support the World Jurist Association's global campaign for the rule of law, has fully succeeded in nominating Ruth Bader Ginsburg. As a friend and colleague of hers, a member of the highest Spanish judicial authority, I congratulate her, and I am pleased that the cause of gender equality and the rule of law continue to advance. This new World Peace and Liberty Award, considered the Nobel of Law, awarded to Justice Ginsburg, is a further step in that long march towards a society of peace and freedom under the protection of the rule of law. Congratulations, Justice Ginsburg, dear Ruth.
Congratulations, Justice Ginsburg. Those were very kind words. I'd like to invite, and I'm very pleased to invite, Mr. Javier Cremades, who is the Global President of the World Jurist Association, to provide his thoughts on the award and then to present the award, the Peace and Liberty Award, to Justice Ginsburg.
President of the American Bar Association, Justice Ginsburg, Luis Almagro, dear friends, General Counsel, Vice President, President James Black of the American chapter, David Nobel. Ladies and gentlemen, I am extremely pleased and honored to be in Washington at the office of the influential, iconic American Bar Association, the largest voluntary professional association in the world. My first words are therefore dedicated to President Judy Perry Martinez. Thank you, Judy, for hosting this ceremony and for your support to connect again the World Jurist Association to the ABA. We are all here today, jurists from more than 27 countries from 5 different continents, to recognize the work, the bravery, the legacy, and the extraordinary impact that a single person has had in our lives for several decades. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's going to be the first woman to receive the World Peace and Liberty Award. Nowadays, in the US and in numerous countries, there is an extraordinary number of women with important roles in the legal professions, and many of them are having greater success than men in the legal practice and in courts. During the last 50, 60 years, there has been a quite considerable increase in the role of women in the world. For example, the recently elected president of the European Union is a woman. Today is with us also Viviane Reding, who was the first Secretary of Justice of the European Union, and the first Vice President of the European Commission, the executive branch of the European Union. I am also happy to welcome in this ceremony María Eugenia Gay, the first woman to be elected Dean of the Barcelona-Madrid Association. Also Kim Carlos, Vice President of the World Jurist Association, and of course, Judy Perry Martinez, who succeeded a woman as an ABA president and will be succeeded by another woman. However, it is commonly felt that nowadays gender equality is far from being reached and that there is much to do left to do. Justice Ginsburg is a high, visible, globally recognized figure in the struggling against gender discrimination. Her work as a legacy as a professor, as an attorney, and as a justice of the Supreme Court have influenced many regarding the place of law and gender equality. In her long career as a law professor, as a legal practitioner, as a judge, Justice Ginsburg has pointed out that a court is a lagging institution when it comes to major changes and upcoming movements which normally take place first in the society. I mean that a court does not make the changes of its own, but protects the right of the society to undertake changes. A great example is how courts protect the right of society change without the intervention of the legislative bodies was the famous Supreme Court decision of 1954, Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, that was a turning point in the segregation laws enforceable in the United States. As a matter of fact, the legal rationale of the Brown case, namely that society changes and that consequently the interpretation of the principles set forth in the U.S. Constitution must also change, helped to bring down gender discrimination provisions in several U.S. laws in the 70s. The rule of law has traditionally been considered to be a guarantee that justice will treat all men and women equally, irrespectively of their wealth, their race, their political beliefs, their religion. In a wide variety of countries on all continents, there are very different political situations with quite different degrees of tension that have caused important violent clashes between several groups of people and the police and sometimes even the army. A significant part of the conflict results from the fact that the rule of law and the Constitution are not sufficiently respected as the supreme law, which obliges all institutions and all members of the society to observe the constitutional values as the highest guiding principles for all their activities. As a matter of fact, some scholars, politicians, and civil leaders have the erroneous opinion that the rule of law undermines real democracy and social progress, since they do not consider rule of law as a guarantee for the weak and the minorities, but as an instrument used by the powerful to hinder any possible social change in their societies. Nowadays, societies are facing transformations that are turning the world upside down and shaping in ways inconceivable as little as 15 years ago. Nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, transhumanism, robots. Once again, the law will be essential to obtain responses to these challenges. Within all these ideas and beliefs, the World Jurist Association and the World Law Foundation has unanimously decided that Justice Ginsburg's extraordinary achievements and impact on millions of people shall also be recognized and globally presented as an inspiration for generations to come. Previously to the first judicial victories of Justice Ginsburg in favor of gender equality, other women lawyers tried to challenge before the courts different gender discrimination laws, but with a lack of success. However, in the 70s, American society was changing at a high-speed rate for multiple reasons. Despite strong opposition for certain powerful groups, a young attorney and a law professor named Ruth Ginsburg maintained with energy her view that it was time to promote a case that would change all the previous decisions of federal courts and Supreme Court, which confirmed that gender discrimination was incompatible with the U.S. Constitution. In different cases based on gender discrimination, Justice Ginsburg and other lawyers managed to convince the majority of judges to follow their perspective and to declare gender discrimination laws as incompatible with the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause. In her legal writs, papers, and speeches, she promoted a basic idea. American society had already changed its orientation on gender equality, and that the court should recognize this change. She has inspired millions and proved that judges, attorneys, and professors can have an impact in order to improve the legal system, and how can they remain independent at the same time from governments and the legislature. Justice Ginsburg also had a very significant role on the American Civil Liberties Union, co-founding its Women's Rights Project. Her work continued not only as a professor or as an attorney. In 1993, her extraordinary achievements resulted in her appointment to the Supreme Court of the United States. But her overwhelming success did not cause her to forget her husband, Martin D. Ginsburg. She regularly makes reference to him with obvious love and admiration, thus showing that Justice Ginsburg highly values her husband and family. This seems to me as a great evidence of the possible cooperation between men and women to achieve great things in life and thereby to improve our society. It was also a pleasure to read in her book, My Own Words, a chapter devoted to her childhood and family in which she expressed how important both her father's and mother's contributions were to form her personality. Before ending this speech, explaining why the members of the World Jurist Association and the World Law Foundation from a wide variety of countries are here today, I cannot refrain from making some personal remarks. I had the opportunity to first meet personal Justice Ginsburg on 1997 in Madrid. She came to speak in the summer in a seminar on universal jurisdiction. I was already acting as a chairman of my firm and serving then, at 32 years old, the youngest board member of the Madrid Bar Association. My friend, then U.S. Ambassador to Madrid, Richard Gardner, who took part in the first U.S. conference to prepare Peace Through Law conference in Boston in 1961 as a young Columbia University law professor, invited me to have lunch with Justice Ginsburg at his residence in Madrid. This was my first conversation with who years later became not just a celebrity in the U.S., but a legendary figure and the most prestigious person in the field of law worldwide. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Antonio Poncioni, to coordinate this event. Thank Bill Leiselman, WGA General Counsel, James Black, Chairman of the WUS chapter, and David Nobel for your significant contribution to today's historical event. Thank you, Juan Luis Cebrián, the most prominent figure in the field of journalism in my Spanish-speaking world, for your support as advisor to the World Law Foundation. Thanks also to Gabriel Fernandez from Colombia, Jackie Rodriguez from Venezuela, Teodora Toma from Romania, and Diego Solana from Madrid, from Spain, for your help and support. I also want to thank my daughter Arantxa, who was yesterday talking to Justice Ginsburg at dinner. 2 years ago, she said to me that she would love to attend a law school and choose law as a path for life. I asked her why. She raised her voice and instantly said, "Dad, I believe in justice." That helped to ask me again if I still was connected with the same noble ideas that connected me with the world of law. I hope I still am, and events like this today have the purpose to help us again with those ideas. Yesterday, I was hosting, as WGA President, a dinner in honor of Justice Ginsburg. We had high prominent figures. A champion of liberty, Luis Almagro, was attending as well, and other international figures. I decided to sit Arantxa beside Justice Ginsburg. I thought it would be pleased most our guest of honor. I put together two women connected with the same ideal of seeking justice through the rule of law in the world. Different generations, different countries and languages, but equal dreams, still alive, still vibrant, still contagious. Let me share with you a last anecdote. When we were the board of directors and then the General Assembly of the WGA to select Justice Ginsburg as recipient of our most important award, I brought two different friends in the US. One of them, Brad Karp, the New York law firm's Paul Vice chairman, inviting him to attend today. He wrote to me, "Javier, it is with terrible regret that I need to present at the board dinner. RGB is my hero. She was a summer associate in my law firm in 1958, the year before I was born. Brad. It is just a small example on how many people feels about RGB and how broad her footprint is. Thank you all very much for attending this award ceremony. For obvious reasons, I am particularly grateful to Justice Ginsburg for honoring the World Jurist Association and the World Law Foundation by accepting what have been called a Nobel in law. Thank you, President Judy Perry Martinez, for accepting hosting this event and for attending personally this award ceremony. And obviously, thank to all the people involved during several months of intensive work for making possible that we are all here with probably the most acclaimed judge in the world. The fight for the rule of law, for justice, is the main purpose of any jurist's vocation. I wish that this distinction to Justice Ginsburg It's also an impulse to promote and defend the idea that only violence is expected and the rule of force is expected when a society does not respect the rule of law. Let's continue this never-ending campaign in favor of peace and liberty. Let's follow Justice Ginsburg's exemplary life, her example, and her words to pursue a better world. Do not abandon our dreams and ideals when we started our careers in law, exactly as pathmaker Ruth Bader Ginsburg has done in all different stages of her extraordinary life. Thank you, Justice Ginsburg. Thank you, dear Ruth. Please, come to the stage to receive the World Peace and Liberty Award.
Would you like to make a few remarks before we have our conversation? And I'll make them from the podium.
So the three young women in the room, please come here.
You move to the right, please.
Yes. Arantxa, your daughter, please. What's your name? Please come here. Take this.
Yes.
Take a picture. Arantxa? Yes, please. Wait.
Red
Yes,
sweater.
you hold it.
Thank you for your remarks yesterday.
10, 19, 25.
Thank you.
Years old. Want to speak?
Yeah,
Seated or
I'll go there.
Yeah, please.
Huge thanks for an award I will treasure, and I am so pleased that the World Law Foundation and the World Justice Association chose to make young women my companions at this ceremony, because they are the people, the young people, that make me hopeful about a better world. Your enthusiasm for justice and peace that you share with my grandchildren, I think is the greatest hope that we can have. Now, I wanted to say just a few words, if I can find where I put them, about the rule of law. So, what does it mean? According to Aristotle, it means government by laws, not by men. There's general agreement that the rule of law includes three qualities. The law must be known and not arbitrary. It must be consistently enforced, and it must be even-handedly applied to all persons in like circumstances. Sparked by the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1990 and the breakup of the Soviet Union in 1991, bar associations have been instrumental in fostering a rule of law movement, prominent among them the American Bar Association. When the ABA initiated the World Justice Project, the predecessor to the World Jurist Association and World Law Foundation, the ABA identified 4 universal principles as bedrock components of the rule of law. First, government and its officials are accountable under the law. Second, the laws are clear, publicized, stable, and fair, and protect fundamental human rights. Third, the process by which laws are enacted, administered, and enforced is accessible and efficient. And finally, access to justice is provided by competent, independent, and ethical adjudicators, attorneys or representatives, and judicial officers who are of sufficient number, have adequate resources, and reflect the makeup of the communities they serve. As the fourth World Justice Project principle suggests, vital to the rule of law in any land is an independent judiciary, judges who are not under the thumb of other branches of government, the executive and legislative power holders, and therefore equipped to administer justice impartially. Independence, of course, does not mean the absence of accountability. Judges are not free simply to vote yea or nay, as a legislator may. They must reach their decisions in an open, impartial way and explain their judgments by placing their reasons on the record. The rule of law has a prime place in international instruments. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, adopted in 1966, for one example, states that everyone shall be entitled to a fair and public hearing by a competent, independent, and impartial tribunal established by law. And the United Nations Basic Principles on the Independence of Judiciary, framed in 1985, similarly state, in the very first article, the independence of the judiciary shall be guaranteed by the state and enshrined in the Constitution or laws of the country. A judge from Louisiana I much admired, a federal judge, Alvin Rubin, of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, said, "The stability of constitutional government and the continuation of respect for the rule of law rest in large part on the faith the citizens have in the integrity of their judges. Should the public decide that judicial decisions are made in advance by people who capitulate to the will of the mighty, then not only will faith in the judiciary vanish, but with it, faith in the integrity of all government processes." Judges are human, and they are fallible, because the natural state of humankind is imperfection. But despite our fallibility, it is our sacred charge to uphold the law and administer justice fairly to all persons, no matter how powerful or small. In the years remaining to me on the United States Supreme Court bench, I will strive to do just that, administer justice fairly to all persons, no matter how powerful or small. Thank you so very much for this honor, which I will display with pride in my chambers.
Thank you, Justice Ginsburg, for your informative and insightful comments and your continued dedication to the enforcement of the rule of law. It is now my great pleasure to invite Ms. Viviane Reding, who is the Vice President of the World Law Foundation. She is also the former Vice President of the European Commission and the former European Union Justice Commissioner. She will moderate a panel dialogue amongst Justice Ginsburg Javier Cremades Garcia, and Judy Perry Martinez. Vivian.
Thank you so much. And I would like, of course, also, in the name of all of us who have heard her, to congratulate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg for this well-deserved award. And it is an honor to moderate the dialogue between Justice Ginsburg and the presidents of two of the most important law-related organizations. Now, coming to the first part of the discussion, the part of the success of the United States is not only the rule of law, it is also the civic education many Americans enjoy. And this civic education, an important way to inform citizens and make them adhere to the fair rules governing their society, should be continuously promoted not only in the United States, but also in other parts of the world. So, Ruth Ginsburg, how can we explain to citizens the purpose and the goals of law in a very efficient way so that they can understand and can trust us?
I would begin with the children. My dear colleague, first woman ever to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court, Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, was disheartened that learning about government, about the rule of law, was vanishing from the curricula of our public schools. In my growing up years, we had weekly sessions on civics. We had a weekly reader that we read about news in our own country and abroad. But in the zeal to make sure that the children are up to speed in their reading and arithmetic, civics has dropped, even music and art. So Justice O'Connor said, we shouldn't just bemoan what has occurred, we should do something about it. And what she did was to found an organization called iCivics. It's an interactive game that the children can play, and they learn about government through that interactive setup. I know it's been very popular. I have a nephew who is the superintendent of schools in a county in Missouri. He has introduced iCivics to every 5th grade class in the school. And when I was told about this discussion that we're having, I was surprised and pleased to find out that the very first grant made by the ABA's then World Justice Project went to an organization in Argentina that created a program to teach students in public schools about their rights and responsibilities and the means by which they can exercise and secure their rights. I hope that program is still ongoing. But I think we begin with the children. That's how we do it.
Thank you, Justice Ginsburg. That is an inspiration, and I think it is something which we can take over in other parts of the world also. So in this respect, I would ask from President Cremades, because in his mind and in the mind of his board, the education is extremely important. So would you also like to start with the children?
Of course. I think that the Constitution is more than a set of rules. It's a kind of civic education proposal for the whole society. And we only learn a bit of the Constitution if you go to a law school. I think that needs to be changed, and that needs to be improved. We need to incorporate in all different levels of education that we need to respect the rule of law in order to guarantee a coexistential life with other peers in difference and diversity in freedom and peace. We have, in Spain, we have lived a situation very, very negative. We had institutions promoting the idea that their aim of liberty or separatism is above the Constitution. So I remember many people was sending emails and particularly WhatsApps, remembering that message of President Kennedy when he had to send the army down to South states to say something like the Americans are free to not agree with their laws, criticize them, but they're not free to disobey them. So I think it's quite important that the basic concept that only under the rule of the rule of law, we can really guarantee that violence and the rule of the strongest is not going to take place. We need that, and we don't have to take it for granted. I saw it in my country, where more than 2 million were intoxicated. 2 million people with the idea that the dreams of having a different country, which is respectful, are not restrained by a constitution, by a system of law.
Well, that makes a solid to-do list for the foundation and for the association. Madam President Martinez, how does the American Bar Association go to the direction of what Justice Ginsburg has explained?
Well, I think we all agree that the trust and confidence that's necessary for our democratic institutions, and particularly for our judicial system, is essential. And certainly the cornerstone of that trust and confidence is a public understanding about the law. And civics education is at the heart of that. And thus it becomes, I think, incumbent upon all of us, lawyers, judges, and I would even suggest the law students that are here with us, to take on a special role and do our utmost in our own towns and communities in order to make sure that it's learned through each and every generation. As Justice O'Connor said, and I'm paraphrasing, it's not something that's in the gene pool, an understanding of civics education and democracies and the importance of the rule of law, and that it has to be something that we pass along to each and every generation in order for it to be sustained. And what the American Bar Association does in towns and cities and communities all over this country and beyond is to instill through its lawyer members and those who join with us that true sense of democracy and understanding of civics education, whether it be through programs in schools, teaching and training high school teachers across this country, strong ranks of high school teachers who teach civics education and social studies, how they can reach students. And if we go into town halls or coffee shops, doing what we need to do in order to make sure that the public understands the roles that the courts and the other institutions play in our democracy. And sometimes we even find a popular film can be a way to teach stories and lessons about democracy. As we all know in this country, in the life of Justice Ginsburg's story on account of sex, and how it is actually been a civics lesson for so many who may not have been reached but for that wonderful movie.
Well, the political and ideological divisions in our societies are growing all around the world, and even in our Western societies. And here I would like to ask Justice Ginsburg, can the law promote the values still today? And can we bridge these divides by teaching law, by informing people, by bringing children to understand that respect in a society is important?
Having a rule of law alone is not enough. but the rules must be ones that respect the rights and the dignity of all individuals who compose a society. The regime must have laws that advance fundamental principles of liberty and equality. Contrast Hitler's Europe, his Holocaust kingdom. That was not a lawless community. It was a kingdom filled with laws, laws of the most odious kind that were framed and deployed by highly educated people, teachers, lawyers, judges, to facilitate oppression, slavery, and mass murder. So the law must be just, it must respect the dignity and equality of all individuals, liberty and justice for all, not just the powerful. And I think that notion that, yes, the rule of law, but must be the right kind of law.
President Martinez, how does the American Bar Association bring this idea that rule of law and justice for all and equality are important elements in all societies? How does the Bar Association help to bring this to the people?
I think we do that in several ways in the American Bar Association through its public education division, as well as some of its programs that recognize works in publications and books, whether they're novels or historical accounts of our country and beyond, is consistently trying to bring attention to the fact that we need to focus on civics education and the importance of the rule of law. Certainly, we also do so through the work we do in promoting the rule of law and advocating for strong and judicial independence, but we also speak when we need to speak. And part of our role, I believe, as lawyers in this wonderful country is to make sure that we follow the lead of Justice Ginsburg. On many occasions, I'm sure in her life, the easier path would have been to remain silent, to not stir the pot, to not ask the hard questions. And instead, she did what so many wonderful lawyers, again, some we never hear about, do. She took a risk for clients that she believed in, for a law that she wanted to see change because perhaps it was not just. And as a consequence, the rule of law was strengthened each and every time. And so through our programming of making lawyers more competent, through our programming of making sure that they know and understand how ethics is lived each and every day as a lawyer and legal professional, and through the work of our association to promote the rule of law, I think that the question is answered in the sense that while there's so much more to do, each and every day we're out there trying to do our best in order to strengthen the rule of law.
There are two elements what President Martinez just said, which I would like to pass to President Cremades. We speak when we have to speak, and we must teach our lawyers to be capable to speak. So how is the foundation and the association going to implement or to help implement this on a worldwide level?
It's quite a challenge because actually the world is more and more divided, and we have a situation where China or India or anyone is not anymore accepting Western moral supremacy. So how could we promote unity? How could we promote when inside our Western society we have different concepts about protection of life, abortion, death penalty, configuration of marriage, or any other basic concepts that really divide the societies? How can we promote a role model to the world? I don't think that they admire today very much, but I think we have a very useful tool at our disposal, at the disposal of the whole humanity, which is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It was produced a few decades ago, and it is still probably the only basic consensus of what human dignity is. So we would like, from our foundation and our World Jurist Association, to contribute, just to promote and to remember always that this declaration is there, that we are all committed to promote it and to respect it, and let's grab it and let's use it. It's very important, and it's probably the only common thing we can propose to people, not just in Singapore, but in Indonesia, not just in Morocco, but also in Guinea Equatorial, or of course in any other country in the world.
So let's go back to the roots for the texts, but also for the personalities which made us wake up 60 years ago, two engaged and wise men, Charles Ryan, the president of the American Bar Association, and Earl Warren, the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. They laid the basis for a worldwide campaign to promote the rule of law as an essential element for creating and preserving peace. This and the inspiring speech, of course, of Sir Winston Churchill at Westminster College, Fulton, Missouri, were the seeds for creating the World Jurist Association then and the World Law Foundation now. So building on the basic texts and building on the wise words and deeds of the forefathers, how can we today give an answer to the challenges for the rule of law in a new global, digital, and multilateral world? Judge Ginsburg, is this different, what we have to say today, or is it, as President Cremades says, going back also to the basic rules which have been written decades ago?
It's perennial. I think the greatest challenge is to prevent the autocratic governments from rising that the people allow to happen through their indifference. A great jurist, learned hand, once said, "If liberty dies in the hearts of men and women, no court can restore it." So we face the problems of indifference, of tribal-like loyalties, lack of observance of the golden rule, do unto others, intolerance. But you spoke of the modern age, and there, I think, particular danger is a loss of the willingness to listen to people with views other than one's own. And that is facilitated by electronic means to associate with only one's, you can call it one's own home crowd, and to tune out other voices. I can give an example of our own legislature. The U.S. Senate was once a model of civility, of good fellowship, readiness to compromise for the good of the public. Today, it's divided sharply, but when I remember back to how it once was, I am hopeful. I think of 1993, when President Clinton nominated me for the good job that I have held for, hard to believe, 27 years. There was a true bipartisan spirit prevailing in our Congress. No senator asked me any question about the years of my strong affiliation with the American Civil Liberties Union. My biggest supporter on the Judiciary Committee was not then Senator Biden, chaired the committee, It was Orrin Hatch, the senator from Utah. So I am hopeful that people of goodwill in both of our parties will say we have had enough of dysfunction. Let's work together for the good of all of the people who compose the nation.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I sincerely think that that was the resume and the word which englobed everything. And I think with this sentence, full of wisdom and full of hope for the future, we should finish this meeting. So thank you, Honorary Justice Ginsburg. Thank you, President, and thank you, distinguished audience. The ceremony of the presentation of the World Peace and Liberty Award has finished. I wish all of you a very good evening.